Hello, listener. Welcome back to another quiet night of Irish ghost stories to relax you before sleep, where the wind is still and the world is dim, and all you have to do now is settle in. Take a moment to shift your body just a little until it finds its most natural resting place. Let your shoulders loosen, your jaw soften, and your brows smooth out completely. Breathe in slowly through your nose and let it go gently through your mouth. One more time, in and out. You don't have to close your eyes just yet. Just let them rest, unfocused, letting the soft glow of the night around you fade into whatever shapes and shadows your mind begins to see. The first story of the night is an old one, of children who wandered where no grown hands had dared, and the ancient being they met in a place the wind had long forgotten. This tale is called The Grogoch and the Castle. It was a March afternoon when the first of them saw it, though it had no business being there. High on the crag behind the fields, where sheep rarely wandered and even the hawthorn trees grew with suspicion, a shadowed ruin had appeared. The children from the nearby hamlet of Tournebow, 5 in all, spotted it first. A dark, hulking shell of a thing. A castle that hadn't stood there the day before, or the day before that. It's just the fog playing tricks, said young Darach, the smith's boy, kicking a stone. But May, the eldest of them, tilted her head, quiet. She'd heard her grandmother speak of such things. Castles don't just come and go, she said. Not unless someone wants them to. So the 5 of them, Darach, May, Saoirse, little Rory, and Tom, climbed through wet heather and wind-swept stillness where even birds held their breath. As they reached the crest, the castle loomed clear, solid stone, grey as misted bone, ivy curling up its sides like sleeping fingers. The gate yawned open. There was no door, only a deep hush beyond. Inside it was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. Even their footsteps felt wrong, like they weren't meant to echo there. And in the courtyard, curled beside a cold hearth, sat the creature. Not a man, not quite beast. Its head brushed the arch of a broken window and its limbs folded oddly, too long in some places, too short in others. It was covered in patches of coarse red hair, and its eyes blinked slowly, one after the other, not quite together. "What are you?" Saoirse asked, half-whispered. The thing sniffed the air, then let out a low chuckle like a distant creak under thaw. "I am what keeps this castle rooted," it said. "I am a Grogoch, and I was once a man, or something close at least." Maeve stepped forward, curious but cautious. "Why are you here now?" "To wait," the Grogoch said, "for those who can see the castle." He rose, impossibly tall, joints crackling softly like firewood. "But you lot, you're different. You're kind." The children said nothing, just watched as children do with that strange open silence grown folk forget how to hold. "I'll gift ye something," the Grogoch said, "for your kindness in staying and not running away." And with a slow breath, he touched the palm of each child's hand with a single finger, gnarled and heavy as a tree root. That night, when the children returned home, something had changed. Where they planted, things grew. Where they touched soil, the earth softened. And when they helped in the fields, crops flourished early, rising from the cold ground like they'd been listening. Their parents, though grateful, never asked too many questions. Old folk in the village muttered of blessings, or tricks, or things best left alone. A week later, Maeve climbed the ridge again, but the castle, it was gone. In its place stood a ring of mushrooms, wild, pale, and humming faintly if you listened hard enough. A few stones remained, just enough to form a crooked half-wall, and there, carved into one, kindness roots deeper than stone. Now, let the thought of those ancient hills drift away like breath on a cold morning. Let your body feel heavier, your shoulders softer. The wind has settled, the castle is gone, and the Grogoch rests again. Don't close your eyes just yet, not fully. Instead, let them grow dim, like a candle slowly guttering. There are more stories still to come, so lie back and drift just a little deeper. The next tale comes from the rugged hills of County Leitrim, where an old shepherd once vanished without a trace, and where, years later, his story returned on the breath of a storm. They say the land there doesn't forget, especially when it's been wrong. This story is called The Lantern in Darach. In 1846, just outside a dying hamlet called Darach, a man named Aidan McCormack tended sheep across a long, lonesome stretch of hillside. The famine was already tightening its grip on the country, and the hills had grown quieter, emptier. But Aidan remained stubborn as stone. He was not a man people visited, nor missed. He slept in a turf-built body with a leaking roof and a clay pipe always in his mouth, even when unlit. Every night he would light his oil lantern, a battered brass thing with a cracked glass cover, and walk the fields, counting sheep by the pale flicker of flame. The lantern was the only light for miles, bobbing in the dark like a star that had fallen and forgotten to die. And then, one night, Aidan disappeared. The sheep returned to the barn on their own, rattled and scattered. The lantern was found lying near the well, still warm but unlit. No blood, no signs of struggle, just a pair of boot prints that stopped halfway through the field, like he'd stepped into the dark and never landed. The villagers muttered of fairies, of cursed bogs, of sins unpaid, but mostly they moved on. The land had claimed him, and the land would do what it pleased. Years later, Darach withered. One by one, the cottages collapsed under ivy and rain. The body was swallowed by nettles, and yet the sheep kept grazing, and travellers still crossed the hills, though fewer and fewer would stay the night. And then came the storm. A summer squall, angry and sudden. A small family, mother, father, and a boy of 11, were caught trying to cross the valley on foot. With no light, no compass, and the fog coming in like a tide, they wandered for hours in circles, and the mother sobbing, and the boy whispering that he'd seen something moving just beyond the mist. Just as the sky split with thunder, they saw a glow, a lantern, old, dim, yellow, bobbing ahead, slow and steady. They followed it. It led them up a steep incline, past a crumbled stone wall, and into a hollow where they found, impossibly, an intact body, smoke curling from the chimney, a pipe resting on the sill. Inside it was warm, a peat fire already lit, dry blankets on the cot, food still steaming in a clay pot by the hearth, the lantern resting on the table. They never saw who lit the fire, or who stirred the stew, or who left the door unlatched. By morning, the storm had passed, and the body gone, as if it had never existed, just tall grass and broken stone. But the lantern remained, and every few years, during a storm, someone sees its light again. still wandering, still searching, still counting sheep in the dark. Let your breath settle further. Let the image of the lantern fade from your mind until all that's left is the soft flicker behind your eyelids. Sink deeper into the mattress. Let your arms rest heavier. Let your jaw go loose again. Relax. Our next tale of the night is entitled The Vessel of Father Kelly. In the parish of Tulla, nestled between soft hills and slow rivers, there once lived a priest named Father Eamon Kelly. He was a quiet man, with a voice like polished oak and hands that shook slightly when he held the chalice. The village knew him as kind, if distant, a soul worn thin by solitude and the weight of his flock. Behind the church was a garden, and in the garden stood a well. The well had been dry for years. A cracked stone throat choked with earth and leaves. But one winter's night, after a storm that shook loose the belfry cross, Father Kelly found something curious. The well was full again, not with water, but with wine, dark, red, and sweet as berries warmed on the tongue. He told no one, not at first, but that Sunday, when the chalice ran dry, he poured again from a jug he'd filled behind the altar. No one asked where it came from, and the wine never lost its taste, nor the jug its weight. Time passed, a year, then another. Father Kelly grew rosier in the cheek, fuller in frame. His sermons lost their edge. He began to speak more of reward than of sacrifice. Villagers whispered that he had grown strange. Birds no longer landed on the steeple. The graveyard's ivy curled away from the steps. And one night, during the harvest festival, the church lights stayed lit long after midnight. Laughter spilled from the doors. A child peered through the glass and saw the priest dancing in the shadows, his robes stained and mouth red as a butcher's thumb. By morning, the wine had soured, the jug shattered, and the well was gone. Not dry, gone, as if it had never been there at all. Father Kelly left Tulla that week, took nothing, said even less. Some say he wandered north, seeking redemption. Others say he still walks, jug in hand, tasting every stream and spring he finds. But no water quenches him. And now, soften again. Let your breath ease. Let your limbs rest heavier against the bed. But don't close your eyes just yet. There are more paths to wander, more tales to tread. Stay with us, and we'll carry you gently onward. In the older parts of Ireland, where the wind still talks to the trees, and the bog remembers every footstep, there are tales of a figure called the Darach, the Red Man. He wears a ragged red cloak and sometimes a soaked red cap, and he arrives unannounced. He's not tall, he doesn't shine, he doesn't fly. But if you hear him knock on your door on a rain-soaked night and ask for shelter, you do not turn him away. He's no thief or brute. He deals in illusions, in mockery, in the sort of cruel tricks that look harmless until you can't wake from them. They say he hates being laughed at, and he will repay unkindness with nightmares, ones that feel real until your mind forgets what's real at all. This tale is called The Hearth and the Red Man. In the winter of 1892, a widow named Breda Flynn lived in a stone cottage outside the village of Ballymoe, near the thick tree lines bordering the Slieve Bawn. Her husband had died of fever the year prior, and she was left with 3 young children, Niall, aged 8, May, aged 6, and baby Roisin, who was not yet 2. They had little, but they managed. Breda was proud and strong in the way women had to be when the nearest neighbour was an hour's walk and the nights came in cold and early. That December, on the night of a storm, someone knocked on the door just after sundown. It was a small man, cloaked in tattered red. His face was hard to read, creases like bark, eyes too old for his body, and rain clung to him like smoke. He asked softly if he might come in to warm himself by the fire. Breda looked down. Her children were already asleep by the hearth, curled in old wool and straw. The stew had barely stretched to 4 bowls. She hesitated. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "I've children to feed and not a crust left to spare. Try the village." And she shut the door, slow but firm. That should have been the end of it, but when she turned around, her children were gone. Not just missing, their bedding was flattened, their bowls empty, as if they'd never been there at all. The fire flickered. The house was quiet, too quiet. She called out, no answer. She searched every room, every corner, even under the bed. No trace, no sound but the wind. And then she saw the book on the end table. She hadn't put it there. It was bound in torn red leather. It opened to a page already marked. No ink, just a rough drawing. 3 small headstones. A mother kneeling. Brida's chest tightened. She stumbled back, whispering their names. Then she saw the baby's blanket, soaked and crumpled on the floor by the hearth. It hadn't been there before. She screamed, ran outside into the storm. The mud clung to her skirts. Trees shifted. The air grew thick. From the edge of the woods, the man in red stood watching. Not moving, just watching. You played your part, he called, and now I'll play mine. She wept, fell to her knees. Please, please take me instead. The man tilted his head. That offer would have been lovely before you shut the door. Then he vanished, just gone, swallowed by the mist. When she returned to the cottage, it was as if nothing had happened. The children were back in their bedding, fast asleep. The baby stirred and reached for her, but the book was gone, and in its place was something else, a red cap, still dripping. Breda never turned away a stranger again. She kept the red cap hung over the hearth as a warning and as proof that some stories are not meant to be doubted, especially the ones about doors left closed. And so our stories for tonight come to a close, flickering like the last embers in the fireplace, settling into silence. If you've made it this far, thank you, truly, for lending your ears to these old Irish tales, these quiet hauntings, these shadows with names, these voices from another time. There'll be more stories waiting for you soon. A few each week, spun with care to help you drift softly into sleep. So if you've found rest here, or even just a moment of peace, you're most welcome to stay a while. Tap the like and subscribe if you'd like to return when the next stories call. But for now, may your night be quiet, your dreams gentle, and the dark kindly. Good night.